Hi, I'm Nan Arkwright. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist, and I have written several books about Kito, a series of four. And Kito learns lots of different things as he's playing with his friends and learning in this story about being flexible. So I'll share my screen with you so you can see about the story. So this is No Kito, No. Kito learns to be flexible. So as the other stories do, they start off the day going to the watering hole, which is a very important part of their life and survival. And Kito's idea is to be first to get there. And when Tajiri, one of his friends, gets ahead of him unexpectedly, Kito tries to block him so he can be in front himself. And Tajiri cries, "No, Kito, no," and stands his ground and remains first in line. This is, of course, um, something that I see a lot on the playgrounds at school or anytime somebody wants to be first in line. So even though he didn't like it, Kito continues the walk behind Tajiri, but he snorts a little as he goes, which of course is something that I see with kids too. They don't like it. They really want to be first. So they're continuing along their way, and all of a sudden there's something different in their path that is unusual for Kito, and it means they're going to have to do something different from their usual morning routine down to the watering hole when they go. And so he just doesn't know how to handle it. So if it were another morning, maybe he could, but because today he just was yelled at by his friend for doing something his friend didn't like, he's less able to handle this unexpected event. And so he's just deciding to say, "I'm not moving one foot hoof off this trail," he cries. And then the other two giraffe friends yell at him, "No, Kito, no," because they're getting frustrated by his inflexibility and his kind of way that he's been with wanting to be first and now not being able to know how to handle this Jeep in the way, meaning he'd have to do something different, even though it appears to be a small thing, it's still a big thing to him. So his friends don't really understand, and Keto starts bellowing really loudly, and all these Cape buffaloes that were on the way back from the watering hole like stop and wonder what's going on. And so one of them, who's very concerned, goes up to Keto and asks, "What's the emergency?" So a lot of times kids will have a really big reaction to something that on the surface looks like it's not that big of a deal. It just go around it. But on the other hand, given what just happened to him a couple of times with his friends and his lack of insight into his own behavior, he is having this reaction because his brain is saying, there's a threat. And even though clearly there's not from the picture, from our perspective, it looks like a small problem that can be handled. From his perspective, it's not. So that's the reaction that he has. So he's telling the story to the Cape Buffalo from his perspective. And he's saying, my friends are telling me no. And Tajiri told me to go around the Jeep and I don't want to. And then once he's got someone listening to him, he keeps going and more things are coming out about what he's upset about. And he appears to have had this experience before. And he's saying, like, and anyway, why does he always get to be in front and be in charge? So these are things that kids sometimes like, these are pent up feelings, thoughts that they're having, experiences they're having. And then the buffalo say, well, oh yeah, that happened to us. We don't know why that Jeep is there. And we didn't expect it to happen either. And then I start thinking, well, accidents happen sometimes and they're inconvenient. But for us, it's not really an emergency. We can be flexible and we can move toward the watering hole. And I think we think about, well, if we get kind of stuck, we're going to be late to the watering hole and it's going to get really hot. So they're still able to think with their thinking part of their brain, not their feelings part of the brain, not the emotional part of the brain. And so they are saying to him, maybe they're able to access that part of the brain and be able to be flexible and just go around it, and it's not a big deal to them. But we see that you're having big emotions about what happened when you didn't get to go first and the reaction from your friends, and you're not really knowing what to do. So they're taking the time to just be with him and help and listen, and so that Kito feels like, "Oh, somebody's supporting me, someone's taking the time to spend with me, to help me understand all that's going on inside of me," and Kito says, "Well, I think it's hard to get used to things when they change." And this, of course, is something that happens so much with the kids that I work with, but I think many, many kids have a hard time, well, adults too, with change. And of course, it's all a matter of degree how people perceive change, and also, again, what a lot of how they perceive a situation has to do with how their experiences have been, and it might be they didn't have a good night's sleep, it might be they're hungry, it might be that several things during the day happened that were uncomfortable and difficult to handle, or it could be like something happens the same way all the time and there's really no resolution to it or a plan in place for what to do to make it easier next time. So many reasons why kids can be inflexible. And so the Cape Buffalo says to him, what if you ask Kapinzi, Tajiri, and Zawadi to go around it with you? Would that make you feel more like you were working together to solve the problem? So sometimes I do feel like I need to help kids like this Cape Buffalo did to try to solve the problem. But usually, once a child feels like they've been heard, that someone understands what it's like for them, they are able to think of the solution themselves. I'm just trying to model in the story by suggesting an idea. The idea being that when you do it with someone else, it's always easier. And so kids, but adults too, feel like there's more support for them and that it's the burden is shared. And so Keto's like, oh, his spirits are starting to rise a little bit. And he says, well, after considering what the Cape Buffalo said to him, maybe if they did that, I wouldn't feel like Mount Kilimanjaro erupting. And I wouldn't feel like I'm all alone. And that, because that doesn't feel good. So Mount Kilimanjaro is a very tall mountain in Tanzania in Africa. And I like to include some kinds of educational information in the story. So there's that opportunity there to talk about big feelings, big emotions that erupt, but also the geography of, oh, there's this cool mountain there that people like to climb. But the one of the other stories we talk about the big feelings erupting and how that feels. And so I won't go into it this time, but that is something that kids don't really use the idea or the language of an erupting, but they often do talk about a place in their head where they feel the upset. And then I can use that as an opportunity to talk with them about, oh, that's your body giving you a message that it's time to get some help. Find somebody who can help you with these big emotions, because that's going to feel like more like keto if you have the support from someone and that they're doing the helping you through the big feelings and going through that with you. I'm also, of course, trying to model that for the adults working with the child about how important that is for a child to feel like there's somebody for them, and that makes it easier for them. So the buffaloes all like, yeah, yeah, we get that. We all like to feel supported by others around us. And then they say, like, it seems like talking it out made you realize you have helpful friends. They can be supportive of you. And so uh, Keto starts to think about everything that the buffaloes have said and goes, well, when something happens that's unexpected, I can remember it's usually a problem that I can solve by myself or with help. So handling small problems would feel good, and being flexible would help me feel safe too. So the brain is having big reactions to not feeling safe because it feels threatened by something, even if it feels like it's a small thing. And when kids have the practice of being able to think about, is this something I could solve myself? Or is this something I need help with? There's various degrees of that, of course, it's not just one or the other, but for simplicity's sake, lots of times younger kids can handle thinking, "Could I solve this myself? Could I ask a friend for help? Do I need an adult for help? Because this is more than I know what to do. I don't have the experience of handling something like this." So that's why I mentioned earlier that when kids think of the solutions themselves, then they have the confidence to, in the moment, figure out, "Oh, I've done something similar to this. I've had similar situations like this happen. I've been able to be flexible in the past. Someone maybe has supported me to get me there. I bet I could start learning to do this on my own." So that self-confidence to be able to think that they can be successful in handling a problem and deciding whether it's something that they can do on their own or they need help. So the buffaloes say, "Well, it sounds like someone stopping what they were doing and walking you through challenges helped you feel connected with your friends." So he's going to rely on them now because they're there, they're available. They were frustrated with him at the beginning of the story, but now they've learned something too about how they could be supportive of Keto and not frustrated or annoyed. And so Keto's like, "Oh, wait, that gives me an idea. This is something I think really makes a difference, and it actually is kind of like a rehearsal for the brain for situations that are similar that might come up in the future when you've got a plan and it's kind of played out in your mind how something can be the next time, that future thinking about what will I do if something like this happens again, practicing that makes it less effortful for the brain next time, and then the brain has more capacity to actually be successful. So every time through repetition, this helps. So his plan is, if something unexpected feels hard for me to solve by myself, I'll tell you I need help. So he's understanding that he's got support right there. And so he's figuring out what he needs, which is so great. And then he says, continues with, "Could you pause and give me a minute to get used to something different than I expect?" Instead of just telling me what to do. Maybe you could even say, "We'll wait right here with you until you're ready." And that just takes the pressure off, the pressure of, "Let's just go. What's the problem with going around the Jeep, Keto?" That feels like pressure, and it's the same kind of pressure that kids feel when it's time to get out the door to go to school. "But I need more time, I'm not ready, there's something that's hard for me." And I in the pressure of, "We gotta go, we're gonna be late," doesn't always make sense to kids because that's not what's important to them in the moment. Keto needed to have emotional support first, then he could begin to think about being able to come up with a plan and have a conversation with his friends now that he knows they're supportive, and so he can actually think, and so the his friends all say like, "Sure, that's fine. We can be a team." So a lot of kids understand the word team because they're in sports and they understand how important it is for everyone to work together. And in this case with the drafts, of course, it's very important for them to all get to the watering hole. They all depend on that water for survival and they need to keep moving. And so they're very supportive, so they get down to the watering hole, and they decide, they wanna go drink under the shade of the acacia tree, but when they get there, they're hot and tired for taking, the path to the watering hole, and, they see one buffalo not heading back yet from the watering hole like the other buffaloes had done, and Keto's like, "Wait." this is another unexpected thing that I wasn't planning on. He's in the space I was planning to have, kind of like how he thought that his friend was in first place on the way to the watering hole, which was not what he was planning. So again, he's going to have to be flexible, adapt to the circumstances, adapt to the situation, kind of think on his feet. And this is the part that's hard in the moment. And so the challenge is, what will he do? So Kito hisses at the buffalo, hoping to scare him away. And then he feels his heart going thump, 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 because having that buffalo there is unexpected. And he's about to bellow like he did before, but then when the Jeep was in the way, but then he just stops. And sometimes I see with kids, they just have that awareness, that insight in the moment. I know what to do. I've practiced this so many times. I can actually regulate. I can have some self-control. I can do this. I'm just going to stop. And he does. And he thinks I need help from my friends, just like they'd planned. And this time, instead of telling him what to do, his friends say, "We're here for you, Kito." That again, of course, reassures him, "Okay, you guys, we have a plan. You're in agreement. You remember the plan. This is going to be okay. I've got support. I'm going to give this a shot." So as soon as he feels his heartbeat slow down, and again, this is important because it's important for kids to recognize the signs in their bodies that tell them, oh, something's going on. I should pay attention to it, because those are like the first warning signs that it's time to listen to our bodies and think, what is my body trying to tell me? Who might be able to help me in this moment? So he's able to think then, I guess I can be flexible. Because you've all stuck with me, I can see now, even though it's unexpected, sharing shade with buffalo is a small problem, one that I can handle. And after all, who can blame that buffalo for wanting to cool off too? So he's pretty happy with this idea, like doing our plan feels better than no, Keto, no, that he felt at the beginning. His brain, everybody's brain does not like hearing no. And we can have reactions to that and, of course, not like it. And then he's feeling like, yes, Keto, yes, that's the brain that we all like when we're able to be in sync with each other and things are going well and smoothly, and it's easy for our brains. And so Keto runs up and down the dusty path a few times, feeling very supported by his friends and feeling very flexible and thinking, yes, Keto, yes, I did it. And all his friends are joining in and saying, giving him high fives and saying together with him, "Yes, Keto, yes." Even the buffalo are joining in. So that's the end of the story. So I hope that this has been a story that is could be a story, a conversation starter with the child in your life when things can be hard. Being flexible is something that's very hard for so many people. I think as adults, we can all understand that doing something that's a little different than our usual routine takes extra mental effort and more uh, time to sort out what are we going to do. And when we have to do that all day, like so many kids have to do, because they don't have very much control over their schedule. The teachers are saying, oh, well, our schedule's going to be different today. Oh, somebody didn't want to play with them at recess time like they usually do. Oh, there's a fire alarm, all those things. It can just build up and flexible and can be making it harder throughout the day to be flexible. So when they come home and someone says, oh, we're not having your favorite dinner after all for tonight, then that's sometimes the explanation for why kids can be upset over something that to us as adults seems small. But when we drill down and sit down and take the time with the child and find out what's your day been like, and they feel supported like Keto, then they are able to shift gears. The most important is the part of being available to hear what they're saying to us, even though they're not using words, they're communicating to us. So taking the time to listen to that makes them more capable of doing something different the next time, because they can make their own plans about what to do, and they can understand how it's going to feel if they can have that self-control through practicing, so that it's easier for them each time. So please be sure to check out the other video that I'm going to be making that is about the free gifts that go along with this book that are available on the website. And we'll talk about the value of those. And those are activities that adults can do with kids to reinforce these messages in a fun way, because that's what it's all about, making sure kids are having fun when they're doing an activity, when they're learning something new. And also, there are lots of materials for adults to help them know, why are kids sometimes so inflexible, and how can we help them in those moments? So I look forward to seeing you at the next video. And don't forget, there's also all these videos for all the other books that I've written, total of 17. And I hope that you'll enjoy those as well. Thank you.